Hey, everybody, welcome to another Monday night. We're back after all of the challenges. But hey, this is Ramone Hyde Speaks, where you're going to always find inspiring and encouraging and challenging messages to help you navigate through life. I'm Pastor Ramone. This is Ramone. Thanks for sticking in with me after the last 2 weeks. Just want to let you know we've got some new equipment that we're trying out. And so things should be a little clearer and a lot better on your end. And so thank you for your giving that made that possible. But we're back. Hey, if this is your first time coming into Ramone Hyde Speaks, want to say thank you for coming in. Please share this live stream. You'll be encouraged. If you're here with me every Monday night, if you're tuning in consistently, thank you for sticking in with me. You can like and share on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also follow me on Twitter. You can smash that subscribe button as well on YouTube just to make sure I continue to stay, you get the most current messages. If you're encouraged by this live stream, you can help me stay live by giving to at Ramone Hyde Speaks. So it's Ramone Hyde Speaks .square.site, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen. And so I'm excited to be here tonight because, man, it's just been a while. Enemy's been busy, but that's okay. We're not going to give him any credit. We're going to encourage everybody. Hey, if you have been like I have been the last couple of weeks, it has been a daunting 2 weeks. Maybe it's been a daunting day for you. I want to let you know we're still in the Rewired series. We've been doing this series for the last, month or so, and want to continue to do this because we're not going to wrap it up. I got 3 more sessions to do on this, but we're still in the Rewired series. The last time I spoke, we were talking about this, the subject called "I'm working while you're wrestling," and Jacob was in transition into another place and he was wrestling with God. Do you ever find yourself doing that sometimes where you don't realize sometimes God's in the mix and he's doing something, but you find yourself wrestling against him, or you wrestling against your thoughts or a situation? And so Jacob didn't realize that he was wrestling with God the whole time, going back and forth. And it was a spiritual issue. Sometimes we find ourselves wrestling with God and it's hard to trust, right? But I can tell you this: God can do his best work when you're vulnerable, and we don't have to control it or dominate it. It does not have to be, doesn't need our oversight or regulation. It does not need our supervision. God just wants our surrender. Remember that. It does not need your supervision. He wants your surrender. So that's what we were talking about the last time I spoke. Tonight, we're talking about, you ready for it? Here it goes. Redeemed in the dream. Come on, repeat that with me. Just say where you are. Redeemed in the dream. I'm Pastor Ramone. Welcome to Ramone Hyde Speaks. If you're just now coming in, share this live stream with someone to help them stay encouraged. Tonight, we're coming from the scripture, Genesis chapter 37, verses 1 through 10. And I'm talking about redeemed in the dream. Here's a little bit of the backstory, what's going on. So remember, let me catch up to speed. We went all the way back to where God originally introduced himself to Abraham, promised to have a child through Abraham. Abraham had a child named Isaac, and God did the same thing with Isaac, promised to have a kid. And the reason why these kids are so special is because God did something unusual. Their wives were in their older age, and so were they. Have you ever seen God do something like so grand that you knew that it was impossible? So this is the reason why this is so important about the promise of all these sons: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the great grandfather, the grandfather, the dad, and now we're moving on to Joseph. But God changed Jacob's name to Israel, and that really means one who prevails with God. Let God prevail. Jacob returns to this place of his dad, Isaac, which is called Bethel, and the place where he met God and struggled with God. You ever had a place that like you kind of remember where this is an iconic place or an iconic thing that happened in your life that God rescued you and kept you from? That's what's happening here. And so Jacob marries a woman named Rachel. His dad Isaac ends up dying, and his wife Rachel, she ends up dying as well, unfortunately. And Jacob had 12 sons in all. Two of them are from his wife, Rachel. The other children were from three other wives. Talk about family drama, right? Jacob and Jacob had Benjamin, and here's the guy that I wanted to focus on this whole series, had a child named Joseph. Jacob had Benjamin, and he had another son named Joseph. Joseph was special because just like the other, like the dad and the granddad and the great granddad, he had Joseph in his old age. You're probably wondering, like, why is there so much significance in this? Hold on with me and stay with me because I'm going to share something with you. Jacob had Joseph in his old age, and he didn't believe that God could do it. And again, God did it. Joseph was the first son of promise because Rachel could not have kids, and God answered her prayer. So this is where we're going to start. Genesis chapter, that was a lot of backstory, huh? Genesis chapter 37. We're going to start at verse 2 to 4. And it says, this is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, only 17-year-old now, was tending the flocks, or he was a shepherd. He was a sheeper. He tended to the flocks with his brothers. Now remember, these brothers were not they were half brothers, so were not real brothers, and so they were brothers in the sense that they were from the same father, but not the same woman. The sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. So Joseph comes to him and he says, "Hey, Dad, there's some stuff going on with the brothers." Look at verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his sons. Remember that Israel is Jacob. That's the dad. Because he had been born to him in his old age. Now let me stop there just for a second. Remember, this is key. It says Jacob, or Israel, loved Joseph more than any of the other sons. Now, I know what you're going to say. Is that right? No, it wasn't right, but I'll tell you why he loved them more, or loved Joseph more, because Joseph was the son of promise. Joseph was born in his older age, and it was through the person, Rachel, that God had promised. Look at verse 4. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So watch this. What's happening here is you've got some family mama drama going on and some brother drama. The brothers did not like Joseph because I'm going to tell you something. Have you ever had someone hate on you because not only did they recognize, or I'll say it like this. I've had a lot of hate in my day, in my life, because, and I'll tell you what it was. It wasn't because I was smart or bright, I could speak well, any of that stuff. I'm gonna tell you what it was. It was because I recognized, and so did other people. They recognized that I had a calling on my life. You know, a lot of people know me that I play piano and I'm a musician and this and that. But what they didn't know is that I was being called to pastor and preach one day. And then so my point is a lot of people would recognize that. And man, I caught some flack because people saw something on me that they just couldn't distinguish what it was. Here's my point. We're going to get to this really special point where the dad is going to give Joseph a robe. And I'll tell you why the robe is so significant. The robe is so significant. Let me throw on something here. My mom actually bought this coat for me a long time ago, years and years ago. I don't wear it too much today, but it kind of makes me figure, it resembles the coat that Jacob bought for Joseph. It was a coat of many colors. As you can see, there's some brown here, there's some purple, there's green, there's a little bit of red. And I'm going to tell you why that is. This robe that Jacob gave to his son, it was a mark. It was basically to distinguish something about the boy. It was to mark him. It was something that was notable, pronounced. It was striking, distinctive, right? I mean, this coat, if you look at it, and I went in public, this is very distinctive, right? A lot of colors, a lot going on. But when I look at the coat reminds me of different things. And I'll tell you why. It's extraordinary. It's peculiar. It's uncommon. And the reason why that is just like Joseph. I knew at a young age that there were some things in my life that it was uncommon, right? I was young when God called me to preach and to pastor. And I knew I was going to pastor someday. This coat, let me tell you, represents all the colors because his dad wanted to remind him that you are called out, that you are peculiar, you're special, you're the promise. There's blue in here, right? Blue means authority. The red tones in the coat, they mean royalty. The purple tones in the coat, they mean priesthood or kingship or wealth. The green in the coat means prosperity. The dad wanted to remind his son, no matter what color life gives you, I want you to remind yourself that you are distinct, you are called out, that you're special. God gave me to you and gave me you in my old age. Let me speak to you just for a second. Is God doing something distinct with you today or tonight or has been all year? Have you been wrestling with God and having a problem with church, or having a problem with your friend circle, having a problem inside your house with your wife, your spouse, someone, and you're looking at a distinction that God is trying to use significant and distinct scenarios to remind you that I got you. Just to remind you, listen, you're called. I got you covered. I need you to wear the jacket of faith to know that, listen, I've got you covered. This is why the enemy tries to bring confusion to identity. And let me tell you why. Because, see, your true identity in Jesus is the blueprint to fulfilling your purpose. Your true identity in Jesus is the whole, listen, it is the blueprint to fulfilling your purpose. If the enemy confuses you about your identity, then you give him permission to confuse you about your purpose. Does that make sense? This is why Joseph had that coat. He the dad wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this boy is called out. This boy is chosen. I have a son and I have many sons and they're all chosen. They're all special to me. And I have distinct things I remember about them. Even my daughters, I love them all, but I know they all have distinct characteristics. In regards to Joseph, God already knew. Listen, I want you to wear this coat. I want you to have identity because I want you to know that I got you. Listen, if you're having and you're wrestling with identity, I want you to know that First Peter 1 and 5 says you are protected by God. First Corinthians 12:27 says you are part of something important. Romans 8:38 and 39 says God loves you no matter what. Zephaniah 3:17 says God is with you. Psalm 139, 13 through 16 says you are God's special creation. I can go on and on. Isaiah 43 and 4 says you are precious to God. Galatians 3 and 13 says you are rescued. Jeremiah 29:11 says God has a plan for your life. What I want you to know is I don't want you to wrestle with identity. I need you to put on the coat of faith that has all the colors, that has all the things that will remind you that you are chosen. That, listen, it's important for you to know who you are and whose you are. Does that make sense? When you're around your friend, you got to know who you are and whose you are. Don't get mixed up in the circle. Don't let the enemy confuse your identity. You got to know who you are and whose you are. What has God used in your life to remind you what you are or who you are? Have you noticed something in your life that God keeps laying out to you? Is there something that's grabbing your attention? Is God separating you? Is there something that's so isolated and unusual? Is God making you distinguished? Is God making you marked? Is he making things notable to you, pronounced and striking and distinctive and extraordinary? Is God bringing out peculiar things and uncommon things to you? That's what I want you to understand. Listen, the brothers already hated him, not only just because of the family dynamics, but they recognized purpose in Joseph. And someone's recognizing purpose in you. That's probably why you're hated sometimes. Listen, they're threatened by your purpose. They're threatened by your purpose. They're threatened by God's hand on your life. Am I making sense? I'm hoping someone's getting this. Listen, it's not you, it's not your skill set. They're threatened by God's purpose in you. They're threatened by God's hand on your life. They see the blessing, they see the calling. Listen, people ask me all the time, they say, Ramone, how do things always work out for you? And I tell them, it's not me, but I tell you, it's the enemy trying to always attack, but everybody else, he's threatened by my purpose. He's threatened by God's hand on my life. He's threatened by my ambition. He's threatened by my goals, my intent. God's plan for you is distinct. And so People are just threatened by your tenacity. God has planted eternal purpose in your life and almost spends a lifetime, your lifetime, trying to get you to align with that purpose. Does that make sense? God spends he spends a lifetime, your lifetime, trying to get you to align with that very purpose. God redirects most things that try to intercept that purpose, except the ones that God assigns and allows. These are for training. God encamps his angels round about you. He follows you. He feeds you with direction, even when you don't realize it. God is guiding your steps. He's ordering your scenes. God is trying to get you to align with his purpose. And so Joseph, God had something set, was something set for him, attached to give you a clue that you're a part of that purpose. And what was that? That was the robe that he wore, the coat that he wore. It was distinct. It was something that was symbolizing the fact that he would receive the family inheritance as well. And what the brothers didn't know is that God was going to call Joseph at some point to rescue them. Let's read the rest of the scripture so that we can kind of continue to go forward. I just want to let you know that. Look at 37, 5 through 10. Verse 5, it says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. Verse 7, we were all binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, when your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? In other words, are you think you're going to be over us or better than us? You ever have people like that? Will you actually rule us? He says they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. And look at verse 9. Then he had another dream and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream. And this time the sun and the moon and the stars were all bowing down to me. And he said, verse 10, he says, when I told this to my father as well and his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? I'm going to make something clear before I go to verse 11, and I'll be wrapping this up. Listen, he said, the brothers and the father said, wait a minute, you had a dream that we were all bowing down to you? So can you imagine they all are out of sorts right now? They're like, oh, ain't no way we're going to bow down to you. You think you're better than us? But what they didn't know, watch verse 11. His brothers were jealous of him. Watch this. But the father kept that in mind. He kept the matter in mind. The brothers were jealous because they figured, wait a minute, we're gonna have to bow down to you. But the dad kept it in mind because you realize, wait a minute, I gave him this jacket on purpose, and he's called for a purpose. I know that there's something unusual about this boy. Have you ever dismissed your dreams? What if God was trying to rescue you or your child or someone else, or give you a clue about someone's life or their destiny or your own destiny in a dream? Have you ever had a dream and thought that it was so real, but you dismissed it and maybe figured out that it was just a bunch of whatever? You know what lucid dreams are, right? Lucid dreams are when you know that you're dreaming while you're asleep, but you're aware of you're aware that the events flashing through your brain aren't really happening, but the dream feels vivid and real. You may even be able to control how your action unfolds, and as you're directing a movie, like in your sleep. Studies actually suggest that about half of the people that have lucid dreams may have had at least one lucid dream, but they probably don't even happen that often. Usually only a handful of these happen a couple of times a year. But have you noticed that anytime God is trying to do something, the enemy tries to counterfeit it? Like lucid dreams are just a neuroscience phenomenon. No, actually, what God uses dreams because this is where you are most quiet and reserved to listen to instruction. You're still when the noise is hushed and God can get your attention. Look at what happened in verse 5. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him. Here's the question for you. Do you find God in the middle of your dreams? Is the center of your purpose guided by promotion of his name and his character? Are your plans fueled by God's intentions, godly intentions, not being religious, or are they not God-centered? Listen, I want you to understand this, that sometimes God is trying to reach you in your dreams. Is your marriage coated with God intentions, God character, God attributes? Do you find things that you're trying to do with your business like godly? My point is this: when God's trying to give you a clue, He'll sometimes use a dream. And that's what I want you to know. I know we're going a little bit long, and I'm about to end, but sometimes God gives you clues about what He's trying to plant inside of you through your dream. I've had thoughts come into my mind to call certain people, and when I called them, it was right on target. It was right on target. But we're going to continue this. I'm going to slice it in half, and we're going to do the next half next Monday night, because I want you to know that, listen, God redeems in the dream. God wants you to know sometimes when I want to communicate with you, I want you to dream. And here's another thing: you can't stop dreaming. Some of you have stopped dreaming about your marriage. You stopped dreaming about purpose. You stopped dreaming about losing weight. You stopped dreaming about taking a break and taking vacation. Listen, God has given us the ability to dream, to imagine. What if you could do that thing? What if your marriage would work out? What if you put more attention into that child that you've been praying for, that you've been, right? What could God do if He redeemed you in the dream? I'm Pastor Ramone. Join us next week for the conclusion of this one, Redeemed in the Dream. We'll see you next Monday at 8 o'clock. God bless.